We begin today's show on James Comey being indicted. That is happening momentarily, possibly within the next couple of days. We'll say the next 48 hours to be safe. It is coming from people in his camp that have told MSNBC this is underway. Let's listen in.
Three sources familiar tell MSNBC former FBI Director James Comey is expected to be indicted in the coming days. The full extent of the charges being prepared against Comey is unclear. Joining us now, MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and MSNBC Senior Investigative Correspondent Carol Lenig. Chris O'Leary, Ashley Parker still with us. Carol, help us understand the reporting.
So, Katie, we have some sources who say that for several weeks now, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia, and actually in offices that are potentially much further south than Alexandria, have been eyeing ways to indict Comey, and they are getting very much closer. The statute of limits, rephrase, they are arguing that Comey, there is evidence to suggest Comey lied to Congress in his testimony on the Hill in September of 2020. And for viewers out in the audience who may not be legally as nerdy as me and Ken, I'll just say that there's a statute of limitations to charge people with the crime of lying to Congress or perjury, and that's 5 years. The 5-year statute runs this month.
So what exactly is he accused of lying about, Ken?
Well, there was an...
Yeah, well, you know what he's lying about. He was lying about whether or not there was some kind of effort to derail the Trump presidency. And by the way, I don't think it takes a PhD to figure out exactly what they were up to. Since then, by the way, since Donald Trump came back into office, what have we learned from Tulsi Gabbard? Oh, that actually after Donald Trump was elected, it seems that Obama held like an Obamagate meeting in the Oval Office where he instructed everyone to basically run down intelligence that they knew was fake, that they knew was false, that they knew had been discredited about Donald Trump effectively being some kind of agent of Putin's. All right, so that's what they were trying to do. And so the fact that he's involved in this is pretty darn significant. James Vickery, thank you for the generosity. Let me go to my friend Dan, because Dan Bongino, who is a very good friend, one of the best people in the business, like I'll tell you that, like he's just a really good guy and he's true blue. And he said something a few weeks ago that I want you to pay attention to, because he meant it, every single word of it. And what we're about to see sometime within the next 24 to 48 hours is exactly what Dan said was coming. Take a look.
Let me ask you about, are you going to be looking into, Cash and Pam, any potential collusion between the DOJ, Letitia James, the novel legal theory of Alvin Bragg, or Nathan Wade, or Fani Willis, and the DOJ? Is that something? Has anything come up? Is there any way to determine whether or not evidence was destroyed in any of these cases?
Well, there's always a way to determine that. I don't want to comment on that specific case right now for a reason. I don't want to get ahead of the Department of Justice on that. But I want to say this. You know, the FBI obviously has the public corruption portfolio. And yes, if you are a corrupt politician out there, if you are engaged in behavior, you know what you're doing, we're going to find you. I promise. No one is going to get off. The days of selecting and putting your, partisan bias on and taking care of your friends, those days are over. You know what, Sean? I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. Well, maybe outside of you and a couple of, I don't care. I didn't come here for the money. I didn't come here to make, I know.
No, you didn't go there for the money. I can tell people that for sure. No, I didn't come here to make friends. I don't give a damn about friends. I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. I got my wife, I got you, and I got a small crew of people. So I don't need any friends. If you want a friend in D.C., get a dog.
We're coming for you.
That'll help.
Yeah, exactly. Right, you want a friend in D.C., right? Go get a Labradoodle like I have, because there are no friends in D.C. You've been doing this, 30 years? There are no friends here.
Okay, so I do consider him a friend, and I hope he considers me a friend, but I will tell you this. He promised that this was coming, and he wasn't kidding. So specifically, Hannity asked him about Letitia, James Comey, this is happening. I'm going to change this lower third on the screen because I suspect it was James Comey telling MSNBC, but we'll go with sources just to keep it clean. James Comey sources tell MSNBC he'll be indicted. Now that is expected sometime momentarily. Like at this point, we're on like indictment watch. Okay. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're waiting for James Comey and Letitia James to be indicted. You heard the MSNBC contributor talking about the importance of the statute of limitations. So this goes back to September 2020. And you see, we're running out of time. It's September 24th. Okay. And if you get a 5-year statute of limitations, we're looking at September 24th, 2025. This thing has to happen within the next several days. There has been an argument out there, and I think that one could give this some credibility, that actually the clock is a little bit longer on the statute of limitations because Comey continued to lie even after the 2020 thing. But the most strong case they have against him is lying under oath there before Congress. And so that's what they're going to try and pursue. So you can anticipate again that it could come tonight. It could come tomorrow. It is going to come. James Comey has admitted, well, sources close to James Comey have admitted that he will be indicted momentarily. Sources I know high up in the administration tell me this is coming. So be on standby. You know what? Don't feel bad for the guy. Don't feel bad for him at all. You know why? If you lie, if you deliberately try to circumvent the will of the American people by trying to damage an incoming president with intel that you know is fake and false, I think you got a problem there. I mean, remember how you went after Carter Page? Think about that. And a few other people while we're at it. But he went after Carter Page. He wiretapped his phones in Trump Tower under this premise that somehow Donald Trump was a Russian spy. A Russian asset, if you would. And they wanted to be able to determine more information about that. I mean, it was totally bogus. We know now it was totally bogus. But why would anybody do that? I mean, like, that's not American. Like, that is taking things to a whole other level, ladies and gentlemen. Out of control. And so you have to fix that. If you're going to fix America, you have to make sure that that never happens to either side ever again. And all these people, oh my gosh, this is payback. I see that's the headline, right? In the Daily Mail, payback time. You know what? This isn't not just payback. Let me be really clear, because look at what they did to Donald Trump. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to put him in jail. They tried to indict him 5 times. I mean, they did indict him 5 times. They impeached him multiple times. I mean, it just didn't stop. And one of the orchestrators of all of it was not just James Comey, but on the bankruptcy side, you had none other than Letitia James, Letitia baby honey, who's going to be facing possible prison time. Here's an MSNBC analyst talking about what Letitia may be up against as well. Let's listen.
Expand on what Ashley's saying. Donald Trump, for years, has been telling his followers that James Comey committed crimes, did horrible things to Donald Trump, spied on his campaign, and they took him seriously. And you see all the time, I see on social media, questions to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. Why haven't people been arrested? Where are the FBI agents being dragged off to prison over the Russia investigation? Why is James Comey still walking around free? They believed that, and now with that call on Truth Social, Donald Trump appears to be trying to fulfill that. And that is the kind of weaponization that the Trump campaign and Trump aides and Donald Trump himself accused the Biden administration and the Biden Justice Department of doing, when in fact what was happening over there was career FBI agents and career prosecutors following the law and the facts and making decisions totally divorced from politics and from Merrick Garland, and there was a special counsel. And so people need to understand that this is something we have not seen in the United States, the idea of political pressure on prosecutors to bring cases when career prosecutors think that the evidence does not merit prosecution case.
Again, we haven't seen the evidence. We only have the reporting from you guys that Eric Seibert decided to resign because the evidence he didn't believe was there for prosecution. If they present evidence that shows that James Comey was an anonymous source in a newspaper, or they present evidence that they believe shows that James Comey did lie under oath to Congress, what does a prosecution look like, and what is the other side of that?
Well, it should look like a prosecution of any other American citizen. We should have equal justice under the law. I highly doubt that happened. Knowing Director Comey, I served under him, despite the political rhetoric about him. He's a principled leader, and he was well regarded in the FBI for the relatively brief time that he was there. So I think it's unlikely. And what was talked about, the FBI director and the deputy director don't need to leak information. They have the authority to engage with media, as do special agents in charge of every field office of the FBI. Below that, it's very narrow on engagements with the media.
All right, we're going to keep talking about this. Everybody stick around. We're going to take a short break.
Okay, you're going to take a quick break. We're staying on it because this is coming, okay? And again, I want to correct the lower third because, well, I do believe their source happens to be James Comey. We're going to go with James Comey. Sources tell MSNBC he'll be indicted. We're also hearing that Letitia James is about to be indicted. Now, Letitia James is another one. I mean, who just, don't feel bad for her. Believe me, I don't think any of you do. But between Comey and Letitia, and by the way, there are more to come. But I want you to understand the magnitude of this. I mean, when you have somebody who's the now former head of the FBI, but then head of the FBI going after when he did, until he got fired by Donald Trump, the president with such viciousness and vitriol and partisan lines, that actually sets a very dangerous precedent for our country, which Tulsi Gabbard, now head of DNI, came right out with in her confirmation hearings. Remember when she said this?
American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once, but twice. And yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation, specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end.
You better believe it's going to end. You know, myself, I mean, I shared a story about Hunter Biden's laptop after Joe Biden had become president. And I wound up not being able to access my audience on not this social media platform, not Rumble, not YouTube. They don't need to remain nameless. I'll tell you who it was. It was Facebook. And I was not allowed to access that audience for a year. And I tried appealing, et cetera. And they said, no, we can't do anything about it. I mean, what the heck was that, you guys? And by the way, it was all true. It turns out the laptop was not Russian misinformation fed to you courtesy of Putin and Rudy Giuliani. It turned out the FBI was actually already investigating Hunter Biden because of some of the stuff that was on that laptop. So they played this game and they played it hard, man. I mean, they played it really, really hard. And now they're like, oh my gosh, how dare he come after us? Well, you better believe he's coming after you because you know what? This can't happen to anyone. People shouldn't be at risk of bankruptcy because Letitia James decides your Mar-a-Lago property isn't worth what you think it's worth, despite the fact that Deutsche Bank, who was lending you the money, thought it was worth that, right? I mean, that was the most bogus, most ridiculous lawsuit I've ever seen. I'm offended as as a business reporter. But Letitia James, according to MSNBC and other news outlets, she is expected to be indicted shortly. I can tell you my sources high up within the administration also saying you can anticipate this one coming. You know, this woman, she went out there like a rabid dog, attacking him every single solitary day, and tried to get a judge to fine him some $500 billion with a capital B. She wanted to bankrupt him. She wanted to go in and take over Trump Tower. Remember? Well, if we have to confiscate his assets, we will, she said. Well, guess what? There's this little thing called the Eighth Amendment where you can't have this kind of crazy, unusual punishment for something that, well, I think is highly in dispute because, again, I'm not going to go with the AG from New York trying to determine what a particular valuation on a Florida property is. I mean, she's not that bright. I'd like to try and see her make it in real estate, but this thing got thrown out by the appeals court just a month or so ago, remember?
Fox News alert, a New York appeals court just this morning has thrown out President Donald Trump's massive civil fraud penalty. The decision from a 5-panel group in New York's appellate division changed the original decision that stood to cost Trump over $500 million.
Crazy.
One appeals judge calling the lower court's penalty an excessive fine that violates the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution. You might remember that New York Attorney General Letitia James' office says despite this decision, they will not be dropping the case.
Yeah. No, she actually is going to try and appeal this one. Because she's crazy. And Letitia James actually thinks that this is her only mission in life. This is her key to political power. This is her way of fundraising. Just go after Trump, go after Trump, go after Trump. We've heard the nauseating commentary, have we not? But just in case you forget, I want to make sure that you don't feel bad for her for 2 seconds.
He's called me venomous.
We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
He's called me radical.
Listen, we know he's crazy. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. We know he's out of control. We know he's losing it. We know his days are numbered and we will come together.
He's called me a racist.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale.
Gosh, she really disgusts me. She really shouldn't, right? Like I shouldn't have that much of a reaction, but I do. I do because what I see was a politicization of a movement. In other words, Obama, he never got over the fact that he couldn't usher Hillary in. Well, nobody should have picked Hillary, okay? Just like you shouldn't have picked Kamala. Like, this is not hard, people. It's not hard. It's kind of like, who the heck is producing or picking, I should say, who are the producers picking talent on CNN and MSNBC? Because none of the talent is any good, okay? It must be the same people picking the candidates to run for president for the Democrat Party. Because again, they can't pick talent. They got no clue. They put Hillary Clinton, one of the most despised people up there. And then they put Kamala Harris. Oh, I got a soundbite to show you later on. This one's good. You'll laugh. But it was so crazy. They made so many mistakes, and yet they just couldn't fathom it. How could this guy who was nothing but a real estate developer in New York City, a guy who was the host of, the top-rated show on NBC, The Apprentice, how could he come in and waltz in and take it away from the woman who was destined to be the first female president of the United States? Oh, and then he did it not once, but twice. They can't take it. And they're really scared right now. Why do you think James Comey was out all over the airwaves on MSNBC saying, you cannot vote for him, you cannot vote for him, you cannot vote for him? Why? Because he's going to get me. And I might actually be in a whole lot of trouble. Well, buddy boy, why the heck did you do what you did? Like, why was everybody participating in that charade? Why were you trying to convince Americans he was basically the worst thing since the days of World War II? back to a German dictator. I don't even like to say these things because it's so disgusting and pathetic, but this is what they were trying to push, okay? This is what they wanted you to believe. And now they're like, oh my gosh, how dare he come after me? Well, I'll tell you, he better come after you, because if it's allowed, if it's tolerated, then you're going to do it again, you're going to do it again, you're going to do it again. And nobody should have to go through that. Letitia James, she's going to be indicted with James Comey for two things, okay? We've got one, the indictment coming over the alleged mortgage fraud. And Lindsay Halligan was just put in, don't forget, because they got rid of Eric, last name Schneider, I think was his name, because he wasn't willing to move forward with the case. Donald Trump has been upset about it. He sent Pam a text that he made public over the weekend saying, hey, what's being done about Comey, Adam Schiff. We got to add Adam Schiff to this whole thing. And Letitia, they're all guilty as hell, but nothing's going to be done. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino that was never going to do his job. So he's like, this can't happen. We're going to move forward. We're going to move forward together. He announced that he was putting in Lindsay Halligan. They're in the spot taking over for Eric, so she will move forward on the prosecution for both Letitia James and, of course, likely James Comey. So all of this is coming together at a really critical time. A critical time because I'm going to say it and I'm going to keep saying it. You can't live in a world where this is tolerated, as our now FBI head Kash Patel has articulated. Listen to him.
Confirmed as the next FBI director, I will remain focused on the FBI's core mission. That is to investigate fully wherever there is a constitutional factual basis to do so, and to never make a prosecutorial decision that is solely the providence of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. For the first 8 years after law school, I served as a public defender, first for Miami-Dade County and later for the Southern District of Florida. During that time, I represented some pretty awful human beings charged with some pretty heinous crimes. But what I learned there was the core value that has been enshrined in me since, that due process must be provided without bias to all Americans. And if we cannot provide due process to the worst, then there can be no due process for anyone. And our constitutional republic fails.
And by the way, do you think there was any due process for Donald Trump? No, it was, we don't want him running again, so we're going to make his life a living HELL until we can make sure of it. Fannie Willis getting that mugshot she was so proud of. Fannie Willis. Fannie like my, you know what? Fannie Willis, and then you had Alvin Bragg, and then you had, oh my gosh, Jack Smith, and then, I mean, unbelievable what they put this country through. So guess what? It's all coming back to bite them in Fannie's you know what, okay? That's what's happening, and it has to happen. Because we can't live in a world where just because you run for political office, somebody that's viciously against you like a Letitia James or a James Comey can come out and try and destroy you. Period. Full stop.